under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone to our City Council meeting for August 5th, 2024. Glad to have you with us tonight. Just a reminder that we do take breaks every 90 to 120 minutes between items if needed. It's a fairly brief agenda tonight, so we'll see how it goes. All right, well, we open every meeting with an open comment period, and this is an opportunity for anyone from the public testimony during a public hearing later in the agenda. Each person has up to 2 minutes to speak for a total of 20 minutes. I will be keeping track of time through a variety of methods, this little stoplight here and the clock on the wall. So just know if I cut you off, it's because of our limited time and certainly not because I am not interested in what you want to say. And as always, just note that we expect your comments to be respectful and directed towards me as presiding officer. If you do have any materials, please hand them to our clerk and she will make sure to distribute to council after the meeting. We encourage you to limit comments generally to topics that are within the scope and jurisdiction of council's ability to affect policy. And we don't respond to your comments during the meeting, but if you would like follow-up either from council or staff, just be sure that the clerk has your information. And otherwise, I just have one person signed up here, so I will invite him up to speak, but if others would like to speak, I will offer the opportunity afterwards. And just state your name clearly and you have 2 minutes. Mr. Busby, come on up.
Good afternoon, City Council, Council President, Mayor. Adam Busby, ATU, Local 1005, Transit Union here in town, representing the transit drivers. I come to speak today over the action taken by city staff, the policy decision that should be y'all's decision since y'all are the policy makers of taking out public comment from social media. It affects Rochester Public Transit Facebook pages, which gives us a direct line to our passengers. City staff has no business stepping in between our communications with our passengers. We say, contact city staff. Yeah, have you tried to get Ia Zhang to return an email? Then, I understand. Then we come here and I get a council member that says, I don't care. So it is important that we have these forums that we can express our grievances and redress our government officials as permitted in the Constitution. We say come to city council, make our voices heard, yet you limit us to 2 minutes once a month. Now, I hear a lot of long-winded things from behind the stash. This certainly goes over 2 minutes. Maybe we should take that recommendation and the meetings will get over a lot quicker if it just lasts 2 minutes. If we're gonna be limited, let's limit everybody. That's my opinion. I'm sorry. I am upset because like I said, this interferes directly with our communication with our passengers. It was not a council decision. To sum it all up, this is a policy decision and I see the time. This is a policy decision, should have been made by the city council, not staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? All right, hearing no one, will
with the Rochester Visioning 2050, we've been doing booths at most public events that we're allowed to have booths at. And we now have a phone number, so if people have ideas. If they're not comfortable on a computer, they can call in. And so it's 328-2050. So we're really lucky to be able to get that same number that aligns with the Rochester Visioning 2050 exercise. So we are taking ideas that people have for the future of Rochester. What's missing? What would they like to see that we don't have? What would make the very best Rochester by 2050? So hundreds of ideas have come in already, and we expect thousands before the end, which will be at the end of October. I am heading to the Mayor's Innovation Project at the end of the week. I am going to be moderating and speaking on urban connectivity and the transformative placemaking. So it's always fun to be able to moderate, and I get to learn about what's happening in other communities, but we're also going to share about the things that we're doing in our very own community. And you see some pictures here of things I'll be sharing. And I'm also going to take the insert that we just had a bunch brought over here and placed up in the second floor. I don't know if, I hope you've all seen them, the insert about Rochester that was in the recent magazine. Most of you, I think, have seen that. I'm going to take those with me and hand those out as well. So that's really all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We will move on to approving the order of the agenda, and I haven't been informed of any changes. I'm assuming there aren't any, and we'll invite a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Keen, any discussion?
No.
Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I'd been informed that Councilmember Dennis is pulling F14 and F18. Is that correct?
I'm not going to pull F14. I had my questions answered, but I will continue to pull F18. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So anything else? All right, I will invite a motion to approve in block items F1 through 17.
So moved.
Second.
Member Keen?
No, there's an awful lot of city business on there, a lot of complicated contracts being served, but I think we'd already set the policies on those. So it's more in the administration and the operation side. So
Agreed. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, we do have one public hearing tonight, and just take a second to remind everyone of the process. So we'll have staff introduce the item, and then we will invite the applicant to speak, or the applicant or a representative of the applicant to speak for up to 10 minutes. I'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on the item, they have up to 5 minutes to comment. Before we close the public hearing, the applicant has a chance to provide a rebuttal for up to 5 minutes. Then we have questions of the applicant or staff from my colleagues, and then a motion, discussion, and vote. So we have Mr. Jace Peter here to introduce G1, which is the final plat, CD 2024-018 plat, to be known as Century Valley Fourth. Go ahead, Mr. Peter.
Good evening, Council President Carlson, Mayor Norton, council members. Jace Pater with Community Development. Before you is CD 2024-018 plat, a final plat by Roger Payne for a subdivision of 44.8 acres into 28 residential lots and 3 outlots to be known as Century Valley Fourth. Previously, there have been an approved preliminary plat and general development plan, which this final plat is consistent with. The Community Development Department is recommending approval with 4 conditions.
All right, thank you
Thank you.
so much. We'll invite the applicant or representative of the applicant. Come on up. Please introduce yourself, and you have 10 minutes.
Dan Horsch, engineer with SCH. Good evening. Just here to answer any questions. Let me know, Maggie.
All right, we'll invite you back up if there are questions. We'll open the public hearing. Would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the public hearing and invite any questions from my colleagues, for staff, or the applicant. Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 4 conditions.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Palmer, you have the floor.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Further discussion from my colleagues? Your microphone, Mr. Keen?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had the motion written down slightly different. There are 4 conditions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Kirkpatrick voting nay. Oh, excuse me, 5-1. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our reports and recommendations. I see Mr. Badzina coming up. So this is H1, the proposed ordinance amendments to Rochester Code of Ordinances, Chapter 11-2, motorized golf carts. Let's hear it, Mr.
Yes.
Badzina. Welcome.
Thank you, President. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Sam Bazzino with Public Works here to talk about golf carts. Slides coming up.
We're waiting with
Yes, it
bated
is my
breath.
slides. What's that?
We're waiting with bated breath.
Good. So the reason I'm here to talk about golf carts, there was a council initiated action approved directing staff to revise city ordinance to allow the permitting and use of golf carts on city streets 25 miles per hour or less. So to come up with this proposed ordinance language, it was a joint effort between Public Works, mostly myself as a city traffic engineer, clerk's office who does the issuing of golf cart permits, city attorneys obviously reviewing our ordinance language, and RPD who's they help review the permit applications and they also enforce ordinances. Through this process, there were issues raised, concerns of safety, another mode mixing with cars on our street. So I did review crash reports over the last 10 years. In the entire state of Minnesota, there were 30 crashes. There's a little bit more detail in your packets, but I'd be happy to answer questions about those. And then we reviewed the proposed ordinance amendment for compliance with state statute. I want a brief background on that. So state statute, cities may authorize the use of golf carts via ordinance and by permit only. So if we want to, we don't have to, but we have to have an ordinance and we have to issue a permit. We can't just say everybody can come use their golf carts. Times of operation, sunrise to sunset, unless you have headlights, taillights, and brake lights. Must be equipped with the slow moving vehicle emblem, which is the orange triangle that you see on the right there. You see those on Amish buggies and other slow moving vehicles. Operators of golf carts may cross any intersecting street or highway. So you can cross West Circle Drive, but we can't permit you to go on West Circle Drive. It's county road, so that would be the county's decision. All of their traffic laws still apply and insurance is required. So that's the minimum requirements of state statute. Our current golf cart ordinance complies with all of that. Plus we issue permits that are valid for 1 year. They're $25 a year. We do require a driver's license and a rear view mirror, and we only allow them between sunrise and sunset. And then the meat of our ordinance, we only allow it from the place where you keep your golf cart to the golf course where you intend to use it. So that route, when you submit your application, you have to describe your route. That goes to RPD for review, so they'll sign off on it. Clerk's office will issue a permit when you pay your $25. So what we're proposing to change, you can still go on your approved route to the golf course. It could involve a 30-mile-per-hour street if that's your approved route, or any street speed limit 25 miles per hour or less. We're also increasing the time from 1 year to 2 years. Don't see a huge influx anticipated in the amount of permits, but that'll cut it in half. And then allowing 24 hours a day with headlights, taillights, and brake lights, consistent with the state statute language. There's a couple other minor tweaks in there as well, but it's mostly just cleaning up the language, making it consistent with the statute. So things for you to consider: golf carts are lighter weight, slower than most passenger vehicles, so less wear and tear on our roads. As you think of them interacting with pedestrians and crosswalks, you'd probably rather have the interaction between a lighter weight vehicle. It applies to city streets, 25 miles an hour and lower. They're typically lower volume, lower speed, obviously. That is about 80% of our streets. These are just quiet residential streets that a lot of people don't go down every day. Do believe it aligns with our goals of creating livable neighborhood streets where users are comfortable and safe. This also aligns, a few years ago, we reduced the citywide speed limit from the statutory 30 to citywide 25 unless posted otherwise. So we feel that this is in alignment with that. Cons, not gonna get a lot of enforcement of this. There's a lot of other summertime priorities from RPD. There's potential for, more people out in golf carts, have the opportunity to maybe pop up on a sidewalk or a path. We're not allowing that, but it does open the door for more people to bend the rules as they're exposed to just driving around more. And then travel via golf cart will still be limited by various barriers, which brings me to the map on the right-hand side of the screen there. I put this together pretty quickly and it's not perfect, but sorry for anybody that's colorblind. Tried to put light colors next to dark colors, but if you're in one of those zones, you really can't travel outside of that zone. There's just a lot of barriers you'll see Highway 52, none of those zones cross that. So there's not a place where you can get on a bridge and go over the highway, because to get on the bridge is probably either 30 or 40 mile per hour street. Zumbro River, see IBM, there's just a lot of private properties out there that we can't permit. So you can't really get very far, but within those zones, if you live down the street from the grocery store, you can pop down there and access your goods and services. So there are still benefits of doing it. So, and that's all I've got. And I'll just be here for questions. Come back to the proposed amendment.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Badzina. Mr. Keen, go ahead.
Just a couple questions. Is there a defined definition of a golf cart?
So I was just actually looking at that in the state statute. There is an ordinance. The ordinance listed up there was, the statute 169.045. It talks about golf carts. It doesn't give a clear definition of a golf cart, but it also talks about ATVs, UTVs, and mini trucks, and it does very clearly define those. So you can't really bring your UTV in and say, hey, this is a golf cart, because it's not.
Okay, so we can use the word easily here and we're not inadvertently approving those other things.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned driver's license. Is the permit we give to a vehicle or to a person?
Councilmember Keen, it's to both. The permit itself is outlined to the person, to the individual, but when they submit the application, they have to submit the VIN number and the identifying qualifications of the vehicle itself.
So let me ask it slightly different. It doesn't matter who's driving it once it gets permitted?
It does, but that kind of comes to the point that Sam talks about in terms of enforceability. If RPD is to pull someone over and they are not the person that's on the permit, obviously that creates a situation or an issue, but they are not likely pulling over a lot of people because of the way that they are looking driving the golf cart. But that could be a point of enforcement, yes.
Okay, I guess let me try this one other way. Is it okay for people without driver's license to drive these in our city? And if the answer is like legally no, but we're not going to enforce it, or is it more or less no, that this is something we expect licensed drivers to be driving?
So as a minimum requirement, the statute does not require a driver's license, but city ordinance does require a driver's license.
Okay. All right. And I know the difficulties with enforcement, but I just want to understand what we're proving. And you started talking about trails. Is this specifically you cannot go on our trail system, or it is only on city streets?
Yeah, this is just for city streets.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Kirkpatrick.
So do these vehicles have like a license plate on them, like motorized vehicles?
We won't have a license plate, no.
So Mr. Cartwright mentioned the VIN number. Let's say I drive my golf cart downtown and leave it in a parking space all day long. How are you going to ticket me if I don't want to pay my meter, since you can't identify my vehicle?
Well, we could identify it and actually ticket it to the VIN as well.
Okay, so the VINs are easily identified and you can go ahead and find the owner of that vehicle or be abandoned or parked in an area that it's not supposed to be parked in.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and if you park at a parking meter, you do still have to pay the meter fee.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Palmer.
I'm just gonna wait for a motion. I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Dennis.
All right, so I appreciate the questions asked before because I had some of those same inquiries. So I personally don't own a golf cart, so I don't know how fast they go. So if you're in a 25 mile an hour zone, how fast
does a typical, I mean, if someone's going super slow and someone's driving, I mean, and, you know, we have enough issues seeing motorcyclists. I mean, if someone's driving really slow, that causes an issue as well. What is the speeds, for my personal knowledge, of golf carts?
Yeah, golf carts typically top out around 20 to 25 miles an hour.
Okay, so they would have to be going kind of full speed to keep up with the traffic in the neighborhood for, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting to know. Okay, and then my other question is safety regulations. So motorcyclists, I mean, it's not a state law, but I mean, there's safety regulations for people who are not in an enclosed vehicle. So not everyone abides by the law, right? There's people who drive faster in the 25-mile-an-hour zones. Is there going to be any kind of regulation about safety for people who operate wearing helmets I mean, I just feel like this is I don't know, just a safety issue as well.
No, I mean, what I have on these slides is really the only requirements. I mean, there's no requirement for really anything else. You know, these are slower moving vehicles. In reviewing the crash reports that I mentioned too, you know, there was only 30 of them. There was one fatal crash, but it was on a rural township road. Speed limit was 55 miles an hour. And the car that hit the golf cart was intoxicated. The only other golf cart vehicle crash that I saw in there was actually in Hayfield, not too far away. That was a 30-mile-an-hour road, and the car was passing the golf cart, couldn't go 30 miles an hour. Other than that, it's a lot of, you know, the golf cart was going downhill and picked up a little too much speed and maybe tipped over. They seem to be pretty easy to tip over, but
Okay, a couple of other quick questions. I know that someone, I received the email and read, you know, reached out, and Councilmember Palmer, Councilmember Bransford, brought this up. How many people have reached out here in Rochester saying, we really want this policy? Has it just been the couple or very few that we have seen, or is there a need here in Rochester for this? Because like, how many people own golf carts, for example?
I don't know how many people own golf carts. I will say this was not something that was a priority for city teammates. Hence the need for the council initiated action. This did come from all of you.
Okay, a few of us. And then my other question, other cities the size of Rochester, over 120,000, how many other cities of our size have this kind of ordinance?
It would be pretty unique for us, for cities
Very-
of our size.
Because I see most of the examples are very small rural areas. So how unique is unique?
I am not aware of other cities of our size. Yeah.
So the third largest city, 120 plus thousand, there you can't, let's say another town of our size having any such ordinance.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Palmer, a motion?
No, I'm gonna ask a couple questions.
Okay.
Lime scooters that go, what, 15 miles an hour? That's what we were told.
Sounds about right. I'm not sure.
When we did the CIA on this was about a year ago. So it's not been a top priority. We haven't been badgering you or wondering,
Correct, yeah.
just to. You could only do this in certain neighborhoods, and I would assume the neighborhoods are smaller than a lot of the small cities in Rochester, in Minnesota.
That's true. I mean, it'd be a citywide ordinance,
But I can't go from there to there. I can only stay in my neighborhood, correct?
due to the various barriers. We're not gonna permit it, or, you know, neighborhood by neighborhood. But if we were to build a 25-mile-an-hour street connecting two neighborhoods, then you'd be able to, over time, you know, as we reconstruct streets for our new speed limit policy, build new streets, I do think these areas will grow and merge eventually. Be a long time, but
A very long time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many streets per year are we upgrading?
not sure, not that many.
0 to 1? Okay.
Is that a
Can I make-
rhetorical,
can I make a mo-
Ms. Elms?
I
had a
just wanted to
comment,
clarify
then-
that the city of Duluth does have a golf cart ordinance. They do allow golf carts on certain city streets.
Ms. Kirkpatrick, did you have questions?
Thank you. My question was similar to Palmer's. What do the Lime scooters and the Lime e-bikes top out at? You said the golf carts top out at 30, so I think you had said 15 miles per hour. I think they go faster than
I'm not sure.
that. Okay, thanks.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion, approving the proposed ordinance amendments, to the Rochester Code of Ordinances, chapter 11-2, motorized golf carts to allow for permitting and operation of golf carts on any city street with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour or less, and directing the city attorney's office to prepare the ordinance for the first reading.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Palmer,
I think we've had a good discussion. Thank you.
Councilmember Keen.
Yeah, again, I do come here with some concerns on slow moving vehicles, some other sort of like this idea of like, we're not gonna have a lot of enforcement, but we're allowing other things in our city streets like the the electric bicycles and things like that. And I think this more or less falls into the complete streets version. I think we do have to watch to see, again, then the numbers aren't large. But I do take it that like, this is usually something you see in smaller towns, but that idea of it's isolated into neighborhoods, I think will keep this from being a serious public safety or a serious slow moving traffic issue for us.
Yeah, I've been in multiple communities that have golf carts as a mode of transportation, and it's quite handy for individuals going short distances and provides a different way that doesn't require as much fuel to get around. And I am close to a golf course, and there are several people on my street who get around using their golf carts regularly, and it is not intrusive to our daily lives. So just from my experience. But Councilmember Kirkpatrick, did you have another comment? Councilmember Dennis.
Yeah. Okay, kind of what my questions have been asking. So without enforcement, you say a policy, it becomes more of a suggestion, right? Because suggestion, if we don't enforce it, we're just like, we hope that you're following this. We're not going to actually do anything if you don't. I know I have a child who's learning to drive. I have younger kids who would love to get on the hands of a golf cart and drive around. I just worry about the children. I mean, that's my background. I mean, that's very tempting, kids having the access and without regulation, without enforcement. It's a concern for safety for me. I believe you have neighborhoods, not every neighborhood I see here has a golf course. So we're turning a golf cart into a vehicle. So we're turning it into saying, okay, well, you don't have a golf course in your neighborhood. We're going to let you just drive without enforcement a vehicle because we're not going to check up on, and I think there's a lot of issues that could arise from that. Because I mean, when you license a vehicle, there's safety, there's blinkers, a vehicle has safety precautions. We're kind of comparing this to lime green scooters. Maybe but lime green scooters, you need a credit card to swipe, to get access. A kid who's, 9 years old can't jump on a line. You need to have some kind of accountability. This, you're looking at someone who has a family who's golfing and an 8-9-year-old. I know from my kids, they drive things on the farm at that age. This is, I think, opening up a lot of issues for safety without regulation and enforcement. So I think it's wonderful that people have golf carts and they utilize them for golfing. But I can't, with my conscience, saying if there's an accident that happens where a kid drives to Hy-Vee to pick up a gallon of milk and gets hit by somebody who's, not seeing that person because the kid's driving, 10 miles an hour. I can't have that on my conscience, so I'm not going to support this. Thank you.
Mayor Norton.
Thank you. The only thing I would add to the conversations that I've heard is that I think there is, as in many of our policies, it's critical that we inform the folks who get these what the rules are. So my hope would be that if we move ahead with this, there could be almost an instruction sheet given to each and every applicant, because we will know who they are. They have to come in and apply for this, and they be given the rules that are very explicit about where they can and can't drive. And so I hate to put too much more work on the clerk's office or, Christiane over there, but I do think it would be really helpful to be explicit about the rules from the get-go.
I was gonna ask that, Mr. Cartwright, are you given a permit with the explicit instructions or requirements?
Well, currently, no. We would have to wait for this ordinance to pass before we have the
Right, right.
ability. But yes, that would be something that we could amend our application to do.
Okay, it's not something that we would need to build into our motion. That could just be a agreement direction for staff to do.
Correct. We could incorporate,
Such bad jet lag.
we could incorporate, a similar version to, for example, the map that Sam has up here as part of kind of the permit application so that people, when they sign, know exactly what they have to do.
That's great. Ready to vote? Okay, so all in favor on the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1 with Councilmember Dennis voting nay. All right, I'm trying to hold it together here. All right, Councilmember Dennis. Yes, thank you. We have H2, which was F18, the memorandum opposing Olmsted County General Land Use Plan text amendment to eliminate city requirements to approve county land use plan amendments within the urban service area. And I know we have Mr. Yetzer here to support any discussion, but go ahead and explain why you've pulled it and let's get a motion on the table soon after.
Well, thank you. So I have reached out, as I do with every, all of this is a very incredibly short meeting. So I had more time to reach out and talk to people, but I reached out to County Commissioner who said this is as big, I'm quoting, as big as it gets. This one policy is the most instrumental, like this is the most important policy that we could vote on. And it's in the consent agenda, which is a rubber stamping kind of item. So
Or
I
it's
feel,
not a policy, it's a letter to the,
well, we are giving
county.
our support, and this situation is so important to be on the consent agenda. I think should have had some more insight. I'm not sure how many of my colleagues are well-versed in urban service areas. I am not well-versed in urban service areas, so I did research on that. And I feel that this is something that is a really important issue. So I pulled it from the consent agenda item because I think, well, definitely with the shortness of the meeting, but it merits the actual just a discussion to learn a little bit more. And people who've reached out, residents, more than one who they don't understand this either. It's very confusing. So I feel that we need as a site, as our city council to have just a couple minutes of saying, what does this really mean? Because I have a lot to say on the item, which I can say for a few minutes, but I would like to see what staff could maybe come and just explain for if you all are, everyone on this council is experts in the urban service area. I was not, and I feel this is an incredible important issue that should be addressed. So
all right.
I would love it.
Noted. So Council or Mr.
Thank
Yetzer,
you for interrupting.
would you walk us through the key points and a little bit more background on where this originated?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mayor Norton, Council President Carlson, members of the council. Well, first I would answer the question by saying the urban service area is a rather complex thing. It gets confusing when we start throwing out different planning terminology. But I would just very clearly state that we have talked with you folks about this a number of times, perhaps not under this heading. For you folks, it would likely be under the terminology of growth management and how many times we've talked about the growth management map and what the growth management map means and how we use the growth management map. To the county, that's our urban service area. So those are really two of the same things. And so what we're putting in a letter is really just reiterating things that we do in practice and have talked with you folks about for a number of years ever since the growth management map was adopted in the comprehensive plan. So as a reminder, the urban service area is the area surrounding the city limits that we believe that we can serve with sewer within 25 to 50 years. Olmsted County's land use plan asks the city to identify land that they feel like they can serve with services that's more than just sewer, with all services within 25 to 50 years. That's what we have done. You may remember there was a letter that you folks approved. I have the date in the RCA. Let me see here. Well, I'm not finding it at the moment, but in December of last year, of you folks approving a resolution to deny somebody to amend the urban service area that would significantly disrupt our infrastructure planning. So this isn't something new, but what the county is contemplating is potentially removing the city's authority to review those applications, which would significantly impact our ability to do infrastructure planning. It would have a significant negative impact to environmental planning, and it would have a significant negative impact to the ability for us to create affordable housing. And so it is something not only Rochester is very concerned with, but my understanding is Byron, Orinoco, and Pine Island, Byron, Orinoco, and Stewartville will all be submitting similar letters informing the county of our concerns with this change. I'm happy to answer other questions.
Ms. Dennis had said she had other questions, and then I'll turn it over.
Yes, so thank you. That is exactly what I would, thank you. Thank you. I think the people who are able to watch this later on or watching this now have a better understanding of that. I think wording should have maybe in the future, if we have been dealing with wording of growth management, maybe that would have been maybe a good term to put into a little bit more, but this, the city council having, you know, this is so important. You look at cities across our state and other states where we get blocked in to, you know, where we can't expand anymore because we lost the ability to do so. We need to make sure that we have the, I don't want to use the word authority, but the authority to, you know, grow and the exponential growth that's going to be happening in the next 4 years. I mean, we need to make sure. So I'm a huge supporter of this, 100%, but I do feel that
Ms.
because
Dennis, before we get into further discussion, if you have additional questions, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
Otherwise,
Yep. Thank you for that. No, that was, I guess, you know, my other big question is why is this such a needed resolution, which is what you explained in your statement. But thank you so much. I really appreciate the time for that explanation publicly. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Keen.
Move approval on the adoption of the memorandum of opposition incorporated into the attachment A.
All right, Councilmember Keen, you have the floor.
Yeah, I know this is on the consent agenda because there's no change to city policy here. We're just reiterating our thing to the county, which will have a set of like both working meetings and potentially votes coming up. And we want to go on the record with what our things are and what our reasons for it are. And if you read closely, this is stuff that'll affect the environment of Olmsted County over the long haul. It'll affect affordable housing options going forward. These are the kind of things that we need to have good working relationships across townships, across municipalities, and through the county. So I hope we're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate that we're taking the stand as a council towards that goal.
And really reiterating the values that are already present in our core documents as a community. This isn't anything above and or new. It's based on those existing documents. And I know Mr. Yetzer has been having really thoughtful conversations amongst other leadership with county leadership about how we can work through this without having a conflict. Mr. Palmer, I think you're next, but Mayor wants to talk too.
Yeah, I just want to, our staff works really nice with the county staff. And when people ask, there's plenty of examples where we cannot service an area and we've taken out of the urban service area. There's some examples that we've taken, we couldn't provide water and we've taken them out of the service area. So it's not a one way that we're a hammer. We work well with the county on this. And this is just the city council, again, stating that this is what we'd like to see done. So there's no confusion from anybody what the city council says.
Mayor Norton.
Thank you. I think there've been some really great discussions that have been going on now and over the last couple of weeks in our county city meetings and in other venues. And I think our staff will well represent our positions. The one component that hasn't really come up that was a little bit of confusion as we were talking with folks about this issue was that what was the difference between the past and current? And I think it's worth mentioning that in the past, we had a joint planning department. And so when things were done, they were worked through jointly with the city and county's needs in mind. We have since split off and we have separate departments. And so I think this was a bit of a surprise. Some people had said the county had always had control, and that was because we had a joint committee. It's not really varying from the past positions we've had.
And I think it's just important to note that this isn't coming from, any place of trying to do something harmful to the city. It's policymakers at the county who are responding to constituent concerns and trying to figure out how to align their policy with it as well. So it's not this really negative thing between the city and county. It's just us figuring out how to support our community more broadly. Councilmember Kirkpatrick. Can't get the words out of my mouth. Go ahead. Yeah.
Can I get some more information as to why the county is asking for this, or why, what brought this up? Why is this happening?
Frankly, I think that's a question that's probably best addressed by the county board. I don't want to make any inferences about it. I do know that there has been some developers that have not been pleased with the timing of extension of services, and as a result have been hoping to be removed from the urban service area. Though I would note very strongly that there are options to work through that without going to the more nuclear option of just saying remove the city from the conversation. So that's my guess, but that's probably best answered by the county board members that brought it up.
And there is a meeting of the subcommittee, is it tomorrow?
Correct. Yep.
That you're presenting at to explain further our position and concerns?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Very good.
So does this have to do with areas that are within the urban service area, but are transitioning from maybe perhaps leased agricultural land, moving into a more developed area with infrastructure being added, or infrastructure is already existing?
All of the above. I think we have examples where we've extended infrastructure into our urban service area with the assumption that that land is going to develop and annex into the city, and the city's taking a pretty substantial financial risk when we do that, that all that land is going to come into the city and pay back what we are fronting on infrastructure costs. But there are even more significant examples of the city upsizing infrastructure in anticipation for land to develop. And I can point to street projects, we can point to water projects, we can point to electric projects, we can point to sewer projects that, I mean, it goes beyond that. Fire stations, parks projects that all are under the assumption that land is going to continue to develop orderly within our urban service area. So it's not always as simple as an extension. Sometimes it's significant dollars that we are contributing to infrastructure projects, anticipating development that, but for additional development, we maybe wouldn't do that project, or we wouldn't do it in the same way at such a significant cost.
Councilmember Dennis? Oh, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So again, I'm bringing this up from constituent concerns as well, who wonderfully active people who are watching and listening and paying attention have, like, this is confusing. So I appreciate again for your work. One thing I wanted to note just for the future moving forward is, obviously I'm a huge supporter of collaboration with the county and the city, and to make sure that as many times we can get meetings and connect with other elected and community leaders. But one thing that when I watch county meetings, and I'm hoping my colleagues also spend time to watch county meetings, and one thing that I do feel they do wonderfully better than the city is that when they vote on consent agenda, they read them off. And it brings it out into the open. And so we only have 18 right today, but it can be up to, close to 30.
Councilmember Dennis, that's not germane to this
Well,
conversation.
it is, because this is why I pulled the item. I pulled the item because residents want to know what's being passed when we say we pass, F1
Thank
through
you
F.
for your statement. Can you move on? That's not germane.
I do have some time.
Point of order, point of order, the president has made a ruling here. We need to move on.
Yep. Can you move on?
Silencing what she doesn't want to hear. Okay, thank you. I just think we should collaborate more and learn from others. Thank you.
And this is a good example of collaborating. So any other discussion, or are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, motion carries 5-1 with Councilmember Kirkpatrick voting nay. All right, we'll move on to our ordinance first readings, and Mr. Spindler Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Item J1, an ordinance rezoning approximately 4.73 acres of land located at the southwest corner of Heritage Place Northwest and Superior Drive Northwest from light industrial to MXC Mixed Use Center and amending ordinance number 4478 known as the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester, Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler Craig. All right, we don't have any second readings, tabled items. We'll move on to other business. I have one quick item. Other items besides Councilmember Dennis? Okay. I just wanted to make a statement. I know for many of us, this is on our hearts and minds, and just felt it appropriate to take a moment to say that nearly 4 years ago, when several of us started on council, we signed a joint proclamation with Mayor Norton standing against hate of all kinds in our community. And here we continue to experience hate. And this continues to be an important position that we hold with our city. The values of belonging, equity, and safety are foundational values to all of us. I'm obviously with many incredibly saddened by the hate speech and vandalism in the past week. I just heard about another incident yesterday. We know that these aren't isolated incidents, and we are better than this. And we are committed, I am committed to continuing the work and standing together with our community because hate has no place here. I just wanted to take a moment. And I will turn it over to Councilmember Dennis.
All right, so well, thank you for those thoughts. I agree. We having civility, having compassion, learning about people before passing judgment, all of those things are incredibly important. So I appreciate the president for saying that. I really hope that the council will do that as well in the future with sensitivity and trainings and learning about others before condemning. I wanted to bring up just a couple things. One thing on the agenda, and I did mention this in writing to staff. I was hoping they would bring it up for Allison, City Administrator Zelms or Mayor Norton or others, but the staff brought up a sensitivity concern from somebody, and I think it's wonderful about how when we walk into the council meeting, some people are very sensitive to fragrances. And so I assume maybe there is a policy being on their works, but I know people who do have sensitivities to fragrances, and that was asked of the city council not to wear any kind of fragrances or any kind of scents when we come up to city council on the dais. And I think that is something that thank you for bringing that to my attention and to all my colleagues' attention. I think that's really important because some people really have issues and we want to honor and make everyone feel welcome in our space. So I do hope that the city staff will make that a policy and post it on the doors so that everyone is able to breathe and to actually be able to participate. So thank you for that. And thank you for bringing it just to the council, to my knowledge, but hopefully to the entire city. That was a wonderful notion and hope to make it more solidified for everyone to know about that. I had a couple other things, but I wanted to address, well, it's a very short meeting. I mean, we're going to go into later meetings. So
Point of order, Madam President.
Mr. Spindler Craig.
Would just respectfully suggest that any further commentary that's critiquing the length of the meeting or the agendas, those comments are just out of order. They're not germane.
point of order, how are they out of order?
Because we've heard them many times and it's just not relevant. It's how the business of the city has fallen out based on various calendars and approval processes that take months to determine. Can we just move on to your next point? We noted your last point.
Okay. I find it very interesting that staff now has the right to just interrupt and control the meetings.
Madam
But I'll
President,
move on.
point of order,
I will
Madam
move on.
President,
Spindler
point of order.
Craig, go ahead.
Thank you. If a council member chooses to just continue to argue with the president and following rulings make remarks that are essentially attacking the president, attacking
I
the
have never
process,
point of order. I've never attacked anyone.
attacking the
Please
council.
do not use manipulative language. This is gaslighting. I do not appreciate that. And I'm
Oh, here's-
bringing up an
here's my-
issue that
here's my
germane to
suggestion.
this.
Mr.
meeting.
Sprenger Craig, just one second. Continue.
If one of your colleagues cannot follow the rules, you just need to move on. You don't need to continue to entertain somebody who is obviously, repeatedly, intentionally undermining your rules. It's my respectful suggestion to you.
I agree. Do you have any other business that's relevant to city policy? Go ahead.
I absolutely do.
And no remarks in response to Mr. Spindler Craig. Just move on, please.
So I'm silenced and I can't respond to some attack that was just put
Point
on.
of order, point of order.
I do have other
Council
agenda.
President, point of order.
Mr. Keen, go ahead.
I think we've had 2 or 3 warnings. I think we should do, I would suggest the council do a formal warning so that it doesn't continue to degrade this as we're going.
Okay, formal warning.
Because I pointed out how short the meeting is?
It's-
Okay. Just to note, I'm getting a formal warning because I pointed out that it's less than an hour and we're.
Realize that you're violating the rules again.
The rules that I had no say in okay, I will continue on.
Just a point of
Because
order.
this other issue is-
No, point of order.
Palmer, go ahead.
You had the opportunity and you work on the same rules that we did. You may not have voted for them, but they are our rules and majority rules.
I was
In
not,
fact, it was 5 of us who
Point-
voted for our policy.
I
I
wasn't,
want to point that out, Madam President.
Thank you. And I just
was-
appreciate that after almost 4 years on council, it's appropriate to understand that even if you don't vote for something, we act as one council. And so if a policy decision is made, we adopted it.
Point-
We
point of order.
collectively, nope, don't interrupt me.
point of order.
I am
takes precedence.
so tired of you saying that you didn't vote for our policy, our rules of conduct.
That's not what I'm saying.
You are interrupting me. All right, please step out the door. Go.
I'm saying I didn't get to speak on that policy. I didn't say,
Councilmember Dennis, you are excused. Enough of this.
I was going to speak on the eliminating public comments.
For Dennis.
And again, this is why silencing of elected officials.
Madam President.
Degrading,
Dennis, you are
degrading
excused.
elect.
We are recessed. Please, just a motion
We-
to adjourn, please.
Yes.
Adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.